Are you recording yourself? Oh. Oh, you're not recording yourself. Okay. Because you guys are involved. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, might as well.
All right, we're going to get started. So just to kind of give you some housekeeping kind of things, I'm going to go through this at the end. There's a QR code, so if you want access to the slides at the end, that will come up. And our contact information is going to come up again at the end as well, so if you don't get it at the beginning, it'll be there. I also have business cards up here. He does not, because he forgot them. Again.
That's why we have emails, right?
Yeah. So if you want to find him, you can look at that or take my business card and scratch it out, because that's usually what he does anyway. So you can do that as well. So that stuff will all kind of wrap up at the end, so you don't have to necessarily scribble notes for every slide or anything like that. Okay. So just to give you a heads up, my name is Stacy Kinnear-Kutz. We are both from Lehigh Career and Technical Institute. It is a CTC school in Lehigh County. We have 45 plus programs, and I am the instructional technology specialist. So I've been there a year and a half, almost 2 years now, and my job is working with the teachers, kind of pulling it all together.
My name is Paul Kapadia, and obviously I work with her at LCTI, and I've been there less than a year. I've worked in different CTC technology centers for, I'm already going into the next slide. So for almost 13, 14 years. So, and this is the kind of brief description. I've worked as a system administrator, as a director and supervisor of technology. So, and now I get to work with her. That's a good thing.
Best gig ever. Like, one of the things we put this up here for is just to kind of give you an idea of how we differ and how we're similar. So we both have masters in instructional technology. We're both certified tech specialists. Obviously, we kind of detour from there. So I have 12 years in the classroom. But one of the things that I think is interesting is he actually also has some teaching experience. I'm sure he wasn't as good as me, but he has some teaching experience. So the reason I point that out is because it's actually kind of an anomaly in the tech directors I've often met. I'm not sure schools always necessarily know what they're looking for, but it's really a challenge from a school to get someone who has all of that or the computer background, the network background, the systems background, but in addition also has a little bit of teaching experience. So that has kind of made things go a little more smoothly, I think. So just to give us kind of an idea, who are you? So how many people in here are teachers? Like tech director, supervisor, director of technology, whatever that title is, okay? Tech coaches or tech specialists, all right? random administration. Okay? Anybody that I didn't hit that fits in there somewhere? Okay. That just gives us an idea. So we've got a lot, it looks like a lot of tech director, supervisor positions.
You all read the fiction.
All right, so as we go through this, long time ago, once upon a time, so this is my second school. This is the 4th tech director I've trained. So my last school.
That could be a reason.
He survived. He's right there. He survived me. So I started at my last school.
How much did you pay?
Yeah, he has 2 phones. He's good. So my last school, I came into the job. There was a tech director who had been there for a while. He kind of grew into the position as computers really started blossoming in the district. So he was there. He had retired, and then he ended up taking over. So he was the tech director there. Came to LCT. It was kind of similar. There was a tech director who was already there, had been there for a while, and then he was retiring. So we were trying to kind of figure out where that position was going to go. What exactly does a tech director look like? And I think the more you look at what a tech director is, the less defined it actually becomes.
So yeah, but most of the time when we talk about tech directors, that's what people think, that we're in the little cubicle, you know, and nobody likes to talk with us, nobody's there, you know, we're just sitting there talking with, but obviously that's, hopefully, most of you know that that's not the case, I'm hoping, right? So, but like you said, you know, it's, our tech director job is not really defined anywhere, you know, and it's, so what is a tech director? So, we've kind of pulled up some different job description and everything. There is no really tech director job anywhere that everyone says completely different. Somebody requires it, as you can see. And here it says bachelor's degrees and minimum 5 years of experience. The next one is pretty interesting. This one is saying unusual time requirement, and it's so there is no consistency.
That's
What
my
is a
favorite
tech
part.
director in any school, really? Nobody knows, right? And whatever you have, there's more to it than, so there is really nothing out there. I think there's the next slide. Again, this one says managing and coordinating, obviously K through instructional program. This one is a little more defined, but again, there is no guideline on what you really need to be a tech director in a school. Obviously, we already know that it's a business and everything. They have it depends on the business. You becoming the tech director. But what do you really need in school? There is no guideline from PDU or anywhere. So we kind of are there helping, but and we get involved in everything and anything. We'll talk about it later.
So what's an instructional tech specialist? How many of you, I know there's a lot of tech directors in here, how many of your schools have something like an instructional tech specialist, a technology coach, something like that? Okay, so what is that person? Well, similar to a tech director, I've seen that being utilized different ways in different schools. The difference with this particular specialist, it is a certification recognized by PDE. So from the PDE website, an instructional tech specialist includes the science involved in the application of knowledge and competency required for the use of instructional technology. So overall that means that the instructional tech specialist job is kind of taking that to the teachers, supporting the teachers, supporting what they're doing in the classroom. Sometimes that might be co-teaching, sometimes that might be troubleshooting with them, sometimes that might be leading professional development trainings, but there's also a back end of that as well. So it might be developing the professional development plan for the school. So it may not always be standing in front. It might be working with figuring out what's the best process for something that you're trying to work on. We have Promethean active panels in school, so figuring out what is the best process for app ordering in that, and what is going to work with what the teachers need and what he needs and what the business office needs. So sometimes it's also that. One thing we have kind of discussed though, depending what school you go to get this certification, your coursework might look a little different. It all hits on your ISTE standards, but your coursework might look a little different in terms of how much you get in Web 2.0 tools versus, I went to Kutztown, and Kutztown had a whole lot of administration type of things, law, policy writing, things like that. So some of that differs. So really knowing your instructional tech specialist and kind of figuring out how to utilize them. But their job is to help support you as a tech director, as a tech supervisor, whatever you call it. Their job is to help your job, because you do have to know everything. Like you said, we'll talk about that later, but the tech director job is so vast, it's impossible to then dump on you as well. Oh, by the way, can you teach everybody how to use Google today? So this is a way to kind of, bring that together. So it's a really integral part of the team. Just to prove, tech specialists also have really lengthy job descriptions, just so he doesn't get all the credit. This is actually one that, again, we pulled these job descriptions just from the web. But there's actually some debate too as to whether an instructional tech specialist has to be certified. I've heard schools who have called PDE and gotten conflicting answers. Do you need a certified person? Can it just be a teacher who's rolled into a tech coaching role? Is that okay if we don't call them an instructional tech specialist? So PDE still is not 100% sure. Whatever you call them, whether they're a teacher mentor, a tech mentor, a tech coach, an instructional tech specialist, that's their job. Their job is to help support the teachers with the tech. So this is kind of how I envision my job, as this kind of bridge between the two worlds. So I have the teachers who are saying what they need and saying what they want, and then you have the tech office who has their needs. So knowing what's going on in the tech office, knowing what they're doing, translating between the two worlds. I spend a lot of time feeling kind of like the Google translator. Like his guys tell me something, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go talk to the teachers, and then I have to kind of translate that and make sure it comes out in a way that makes sense. And the same thing the other direction. The teachers are saying, listen, I need this, and taking that back to them and explaining this is what they're asking for and this is why, and kind of coming to that. So I feel like I spend a lot of time bridging those two worlds and trying to really make sure the two worlds are kind of seeing each other. So back in the beginning, like I said, we were actually looking for a new tech director. We knew that ours was retiring at LCTI, and we were trying to figure out exactly what we needed. So one of the things we did was just look at the school as a whole and develop this vision. So the goal was really to get technology more integrated into the classrooms, get teachers feeling a little more comfortable with it, making everybody kind of work together. There had kind of been this division that happened, and I think I've seen it happen in a lot of schools, where there almost ends up being this at odds kind of relationship between the tech office. Like you said, they're in their cubbies. They don't get windows.
We do get windows.
So funny. Dad joke. That's why they'll be in.
And cookies.
And cookies.
As long as cookies and computers, we're happy.
But he has such a good sense of humor. But we were trying to figure out how to fix that, because it really, me coming in working between the two sides, there was really no fault. There was really not like they're bad. There was really no like they caused it. It's one of those things that just kind of brews misunderstandings, miscommunications, and it brews to a point where you end up with this division, and you're like, okay, no, I'm not even going to ask for help anymore. And I've seen that not just at schools I've worked at schools that I've interacted with otherwise. Teachers stop asking for help. So they go two routes. They either go, I'm not using it anymore, I'm done with technology, I'm not using it, I hate it. Or they go rogue, and they're like, I'm going to use this website and not tell anyone. I'm going to create all these accounts for these students just because if I click here in Google Classroom, it connects everything, so I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to tell anyone. Neither are really ideal. You want your teachers to use technology and be supported, but you also want to have kind of an idea of what they're using. So our vision was to really try to pull that together, and what did that look like? We also looked at what we had in-house. So we knew he has a very strong team of technicians who each have kind of their own specialty and focus. I was there to help with some of the professional development and the planning and the teacher support. So it was just kind of looking at what exactly did we need to fit our needs to make that vision happen.
And now, as a vision, as an organization, obviously there needs to be a vision for the IT. What you want to do, and you have to make sure that you have to include instruction goal, infrastructure goal. You have to make sure technical support, policy and procedure, and budget and resource. So you have to include all that, which not anybody outside of IT understands. The infrastructure, they don't. Again, everyone says that I want this, but they don't understand what goes into get this. So you have to make sure, and that's the other thing too. What is successful technology integration? You have to be routine, transparent. That's a key word. That as long as you're transparent to your teacher, you're notifying them that this is what's going on, this is why we're doing this. Most of them, again, I say most of them will understand. Not all of them. You're not going to get 100% anytime. So you want to make sure that, again, if you're supporting it, make sure it's readily available. Because if I can help, and I'm sure many of you are in that, my mouse doesn't work. And it's their world, and you can't, but you get it. They're in front of students, 20, 30, 40, whatever students are, and something doesn't work. Their world is kind of breaking down, you know. So you have to make sure, even though they're calling and they're saying that, hey, this doesn't work, this doesn't. Instead of saying it's just a mouse, tell them, okay, well, you know, it's because if there is a fight going on, it's always going to be, you're going to keep fighting. So just tell them, yes, okay, we're going to do this. So more you tell them that it's okay, yes, I kind of get it. But it's going to make their life easier, and that needs to be included in the IT vision. You can't get away from that. If you're not including your teachers and everything, whatever you're doing, it's never going to be successful. And that's what you want to make sure that you're including that part in there with IT.
And that's some of the frustrations that I had heard when I kind of started there. And I'm sure a lot of you have similar ticket systems. If something's wrong, they're supposed to put in a ticket thing. And I definitely understand that. At my last district, I kind of worked on setting a system up on doing that, because we needed a way to track what was not getting done, making sure things were checked off. The problem is sometimes that almost becomes, it's like a curse word for a teacher. Like, my mouse, the batteries just died or something like that, and you come back with, well, put a ticket in. So they have gotten a lot better this year, I think. Like you said, transparency. I might put in a ticket for something, and within a minute my phone rings. And it doesn't necessarily mean that someone magically appears at my door in a minute, but my phone rings and they're like, hey, listen, did you try this? Or, hey, I will be down in this many, in 10 minutes, or I will see you this afternoon, can it wait till then? So those little things are huge. Sometimes it might be something where I reach out to them and like, listen, I think the teachers need a heads up on this. Do you want to send an email? Do you want me to send an email? I can write the email and just put your name on it if you want to, go ahead. But there are different ways to make sure that the teachers are being heard. And sometimes I think in that huge job description that a tech director has, you're worrying about so many things. You're keeping the security cameras running. You're keeping the little vaping sensors running in the bathrooms. You're keeping your elevators running. You're keeping all of these things going that are so integral to the school that something like sending a teacher an email, it's not that you don't want to, it's just really not on the top of your to-do list. But it is very important to have that transparency.
But again, like I said, we kind of went back to it. Teacher doesn't know that.
Nope.
So by doing that and them not knowing it, and I kind of go over kind of what you pointed out, my background in education, teaching in college and high school, which obviously helps me bridge the gap with the teachers, because I can kind of sometimes relate to them and say that, hey, I understand this is, but let's go in this direction, or let's go in this direction, or send her, so that kind of helps too.
Go. All right. So as we went through this, one of the things, if you're trying to really create this vision, if your vision is really to have this connection between the departments, he and I started working together when did we start? Seems like forever ago. We started working, it feels like it. So we ended up going to 2 conferences back to back, so it was kind of like trial by fire. But we, one of the things that was done even prior to that was, it was a start at the top. These are job descriptions from our school. So you can see under the supervisor of technology, I mentioned twice, and under mine it's kind of the same. We have to play nice. We're not leaving this to do we get along. We're not leaving this to, well, let's see if they hit it off. We're saying, as an institution, it's important to us that these 2 sides are working together. Not only are we going to tell them that, we are going to set that up as an expectation of their job. So he has to be nice to me. That's what that means. He has to be. But it's part of that communication thing. So if you're looking at your school and saying, you know what, I like this, but starting at the top is helpful. And obviously if you have new hires coming in, that makes it a little easier than if these are people who've been here a while. But even just setting forth an expectation, part of your job is working together. So Break down those boundaries. I don't care how you do it. Break them down and work together.
So yeah, as we're kind of comparing here, obviously we're both part of technology and who needs what, so there is a technology, who we support and what we do, what comes first, as the technology comes first under my job description, where teaching comes in under her job description. And teaching is a secondary to technology secondary.
And I did that on purpose because honestly, I think sometimes teachers, and I've been in the classroom, I understand, sometimes you feel like they're not listening to you. Like he doesn't really care about me. He's trying to make my life hard because he just keeps saying no. He just doesn't understand. And you don't feel like they are trying to support teaching. They are. They're just doing it in a different direction, but they are.
And more, policy and procedure is that we all have to compliance with. So, it's important for her and IT department, both student success. There are times like teachers do say that, you're just doing this because you don't care about the classroom or anything. That's not the case. You are, everything is designed for the students, and we have to make sure that we're compliant with all the policy and procedure. So there is a time that teacher may not be able to get anything and everything because they saw something somewhere. It might not, you might not be able to do it. So just relaying those messages. But again, we're all there for student success. Make sure the tech law is compliant. If teachers are making accounts on different places and they're not getting approved, they just put out a website because they're a web design teacher, for example, let's say, and they create a website and they put it out there with the school's logo on it. Yeah, when you put the school's logo on it, it doesn't matter if it's related to school or it went through compliance with it or not. It's school's website. Somebody from outside is going to look at it as a school's website, but they're not looking at it that way. They're like, I'm just using it for student, but there is way beyond that you have to look through it. So that's what, then you have to tell the teachers that it's not, yes, I'm not telling you to not create a website for students, just don't put its logo on it or put it there that, hey, it's a student website or something, Don't try to add. So that is a communication again. You have to make sure that you're providing them. So.
And things like the tech law, we have a legal consortium in the Lehigh that the tech directors get invited to. They don't invite necessarily the tech coaches and the tech specialists. It usually goes to the tech directors. But one thing our tech director last year had started doing was taking me with, which is really useful. So if this is something you kind of hadn't thought of till now, sometimes those tech director meetings, yes, they're meant for you, obviously, but it is really important because teachers don't tend to get to things that involve law. They don't talk about FERPA, they don't talk about COPA, they don't go to conferences and get that. That's not what their focus is, and that's fine. But making sure that not only is he aware of what those laws are, but that when I'm in a classroom I am as well, to make sure that's getting back to the teachers who are actually on the ground running. So making sure that I need to know both pieces. So inviting that person with you to some of those meetings, not every meeting, they don't need to come with when you're negotiating your internet access contracts or anything like that, but when you're starting to get into these things like best practices and tech law, those are things that it's really important to let them know. It makes them feel valued because they're there, but it also helps to make sure they can help ensure compliance at the ground floor. So at the beginning, these are some of the things that we kind of set forth at the beginning. So just some tips to kind of get started. Again, you can't leave it to chance, like, hey, let's just hope these guys get along. Let's hope. Let's hire 2 people, let's hope they become BFFs, and we're good to go. It might happen that way, but more often than not, probably not. So here's some ways that you can do that.
I know about that. Oh, did I say that aloud? Sorry.
Set regular meetings and keep them. You get busy, I get it, you get busy. But what happens is, first of all, you feel not important because it's constantly this, oh, well, maybe, how about next week? When you call and say, hey, listen, do we really have to meet today? You've been on the other side of that phone call. You don't want to be like, yes, we do, drop everything. Now, something comes up. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that happens. Maybe rescheduling is not important. It is not impossible. But don't keep scheduling meetings over meetings. Make it a priority to get together and talk. Make it a priority to sit down once a week. The beginning. At some point, you may get to the point, like he and I don't have regular meetings set anymore because we're texting usually whenever we, like, hey, do this, or what about this, or we're in communication all the time. Pick up the phone, call, and ask a question. But especially at the beginning, set those times, make them important so you can get together and have these discussions.
But until you build a relationship, you know, you want to make sure that you're communicating. That's the key thing probably here throughout that. Communication is important between two individuals because, again, she's right in front of the teachers most of the time. She's going in every classroom and doing that, which I'm not doing that every day. She is doing that. So if we're not communicating or she's not getting back to me, there are times, going back to tickets aren't getting put on, but I get to hear that from her before I even get the ticket. So we already know what we're working on or anything. So, hey, teachers are worrying about this. So before even it becomes a bigger problem, let's resolve it if that's going to cause a problem later on. So you want to make sure, and that's why communication is key.
Talk more about problems. Talk about more than problems and permissions. So when you do sit down, don't make this just like a checklist of, okay, this teacher wants to know, can you do this? Is this teacher allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do this? Can I go here and do this? Can we order this? Really just becomes this rapid fire thing. Make it more than that. So talk about the vision. What are we hoping for in a bigger picture? Where are we going next year? Hey, there's a professional development in March. This is my thought. Have you seen anything we need? Here's something I think we need to really implement more. Here's something I'm seeing on a bigger picture. So, or like in his case, hey, we've had this many tickets involving this particular thing. So maybe that's something we want to work into a professional development because this is a widespread problem now. So don't just come in with your checklist and be like, okay, we checked off our checklist and we've moved on now. Really talk about those bigger issues because that's how you're really going to make a vision. That's how you're going to impact the school. Other than that, you're just putting out fires. Don't be afraid to ask questions. So this comes back to the differing job description. So it would be a really bad idea to drop me in his server closet and let me go. I wouldn't do that. It could be fun.
It has a lot. She doesn't have a key for it.
See, I don't have to know everything. But ask questions. If there's something that you're like, why did you say no to that? I don't understand. The teacher really needs this. Ask the question. And answer the question honestly. Don't just be like, nope, because I said so. Although he's done that. Ask the question. There are times.
And we kind of go back to, and there are times, for whatever reason, she doesn't need to know that part, you know? And I'm sure you guys are that, or it's not really, you don't want to waste that much activity. But there's to explanation, it's longer than just saying no. There are times, or times, so I get it, sometimes you just say no. And again, that's what it is. She needs to understand that too, that there are times that when I say no, which you'll hear, but when I say no, it's no. But you can always communicate and go to why that is a no. It doesn't mean, you don't have to explain it at that point.
Right. And like last year, one of the things we uncovered during a discussion, we have A/B tutor for our labs. We have a lot of different machines in our building, but we have A/B tutor to kind of help with management. And some of the IT was frustrated because teachers weren't utilizing it to do filtering, blocking, and they didn't understand why. And through our discussion, we discovered that they weren't trained in it. They didn't know how to use it. They were given it day one when they started teaching, like literally day one. Here's your SIS, here's how you take attendance, here's how you put grades in, here's your A/B tutor, here's how you use it, They weren't ready to hear it. They had no idea what to do with it. So they just kind of left it to the side, never touched it. It's not that they didn't want to. They truly just had never. So through some discussions and figuring that out and communicating, it was like, you know what? A professional development would fix this. In-service session, if you have A/B tutor, come here, let's do this. And it was so much simpler than this constant, like, well, why aren't you using this? You should do this. So that communication is helpful. Present yourself as a team and act like a team. So when you go out there, whether it's him walking into his tech office or walking with the teachers, we go to different meetings. So he might go to a cabinet meeting, he might go to meetings with curriculum. I go to separate meetings with curriculum. So you go to different meetings, you do different things. Present yourself as a team, because it's like the mom-dad scenario. If they think that you guys are divided, they're going to ask him the same question they ask me and hope we give different answers, because that will help. And that works from all different directions. So make sure you present yourself as a team, and that really helps that whole big vision that you're looking at. Talk before, during, and after problems and things like that. So don't just be like, the checklist is the problem solved, we move on, we're done with it. Keep talking about that to make sure it doesn't happen again, to make sure the plan going forward prevents that from happening again. Like you said, the heads up, hey, I have teachers really worried about this, they're gonna put a ticket in, but I want you to know, because this is important to them. So he is aware in advance this is coming.
She's right. The rest of it out loud.
Ooh! This is being recorded.
We can modify that. That's easy.
You have a particular set of skills. All right, key points. Communication is key. So we've said that a lot. Communicate often, communicate about everything, communicate about problems, communicate about concerns, communicate. Whether that's via phone, like I said, setting meetings is really important, whether it's harassing with text messages all the time. I would also recommend...
That's why there's a hide alert button.
If you ever have a chance to turn your coworker into a Bitmoji, do it. Because it is so much more fun to send Bitmojis of him to people. It's amazing. But communicate, talk, speak. The more you communicate, the better that bond is going to get. The more you can start trusting each other. He comes in, I don't know anything about him, how do I, like, he doesn't know anything about me. How does he know I know my stuff? How does he know I know what I'm doing and I know tech law? And how does he doesn't. Until we talk, communicate, build that trust.
So, kind of going back to, we really need to know as an IT, we need to know everything. I kind of go and say, we really need to know when people are breathing. Because if we don't know what's going on in the building, we can't really support it. And with the IT, and that's what the problem is, that people like to do. And we're talking about not just the instructional goal, we're talking about the building maintenance. All that stuff is on our servers, So if we don't know why and who has access to it and what they're doing with it, and if we're not involved in every single bits of it, we can't support it. So everything is a part of technology. And again, that's not just the communicating over here. That needs to be communicated with the administrative team and everything too. If there is some bigger project or something's coming, and if IT is not involved in that, it's always like, yeah, well, we didn't know. Oh, you needed this? Oh, we're putting up a new building, but we don't even know. They didn't even think about, oh, you're going to need all the network ports here. Oh, you're going to need a new... Yes, even if you're building a new building that doesn't really have anything to do with IT in the beginning, eventually you still need an access point, right? To get an access to a Wi-Fi or anything. So things like that. Even everything we need to know. And obviously, since most of you know, obviously, one of my pet peeves in many places, and that was proved, that building maintenance software are given access to anybody and everywhere. So again, obviously, Target Hack probably hopefully helped everyone on one, and we can get more control over it. But again, that's the problem, that we have to make sure that what comes into our building, we know about it. Okay, that's the key thing. Also, specifically, we work for CTE, and it's not just you're talking about the instructional software. For CTE, we have a different lab where they're using different machinery and everything. That those softwares are coming in, and they want to install those different software to operate big Mack truck. How to get the data for the Mack truck and everything. We need to know that if they're buying a bigger equipment, buying a new Mack truck, I need to know what kind of software will go to get the data from that truck, and how are we going to be able to use it for students. So things like that. So in CTE, it even goes beyond just the instructional and building maintenance and infrastructure. So we need to make sure that we know everything what's going on in this building. Again, even though while we're doing this for teachers as an IT, we have to make sure that it's still about curriculum. So we have to make sure that we're supporting the curriculum. Let's not tell teachers that this is how you're going to use technology, but let's tell them how we can incorporate it into their curriculum, which is going to be easier translation and easier move for them because they know what their world is. If we're going to go and talk about technology to them, they're not going to care. Again, it's going to go back to AB Tutor. Yes, we gave it to you, but they're not going to use it. But let's tell them how it helps them. It they're using this piece of software, how is it gonna be helpful for them into their everyday life? And that's how it's gonna go very well during the implementation process.
And I think kind of that almost piece too. There's times, like he knows all sorts of stuff. But there's times too where he might give me an answer like, I can't tell you. One of the next slides, I don't remember which one, but one of the next slides kind of talks, in the hierarchy of things, he's technically higher. So, he sits in meetings, like the cabinet meetings. There may be things coming down that I don't know about and I'm not privy to. And him saying, listen, I can't tell you, I have to respect that. I have to trust his decision, which goes back to the communication and building that trust. I have to trust that if he says no, but I can't tell you why, I have to let it go. It's not fair to kind of push that. But on the flip side, there's times teachers call me and ask for help. I'm not running back and being like, can you believe what this teacher just asked? As a teacher, you're feeling vulnerable as soon as you have to ask for help. That puts you in that vulnerable state. So if you're calling to ask for help because my mouse died, or because I'm not sure if I hit the right button on this, projector, or my job sometimes is to go in and troubleshoot when they just don't feel comfortable asking. They don't want to look stupid. And there's no stupid question. If you don't know how to do it, it's not a stupid question to ask. That's why I'm here. Sometimes they don't put a ticket in. Sometimes they call me, just don't tell them. And they're like, can you just come check before I put a ticket in that I didn't do something silly, that I didn't, miss a wire, that I didn't. I'm more than willing to go in and do that. If it is a bigger problem than I can handle, I will kick it up to them. I will tell them to put the ticket in. I will do what I can without breaking his stuff to figure that out for them so that they can feel comfortable. And that's part of building that comfort level. So I'm not going to run back to him every time and be like, can you believe this teacher asked me this? Can you believe this? There's a confidentiality there too. So when a teacher calls me in, I may not tell him. So that's kind of that almost piece. We balance each other out mostly. We provide perspective. So we're two sides. We're both going to that same vision. We both have the same goals. So the app ordering, for example, we had a document 6 pages long? About. If a teacher wanted to request a website, software, an app, they were supposed to complete this 6-page document. If you've ever been in the classroom and you're like, can you imagine telling a teacher, hey, would it be okay if I use GoNoodle? Yes, but only if you complete this 6-page document. That's where they went rogue or gave up. That's what happened. Mm-hmm. So one of the things this year was trying to figure that out. And they need it on their side to track stuff. They need to know what's being used out there. They need to make sure it's compliant. They need to make sure if it costs something, it goes through the business office appropriately. But 6 pages is not manageable. It is redundant. It is stressful, and it feels like you're trying to convince the teachers not to use tech. You're trying to dissuade that. So he and I work together, kind of bouncing back, how would this process work best? And I think it's finally to the point. It's been rolled out. It's half a page. It's out there. The business office likes it for payment purposes, so that's great. The teachers that have filled it out said it's so much easier. It flows through a process where I can look at it from a tech standpoint. Their supervisors look at it from a financial standpoint. He looks at it from a technology and security standpoint. And then it gets kicked, I think, it goes to director of curriculum first. But it makes sure to touch all the boxes and then it can get approved. But it's half a page. So in a teacher end, they went from 6 pages to half a page. And we bounced that out. We bounced out ideas of ways. Do we want to create a list of apps that are pre-approved? Do we want to, what are things that all the teachers might need? How do we want to do that? Is there a way we can simplify that? So we've been working together to create a process and a policy that worked for them, that was manageable. So it's those two sides of the coin that have to come to the table.
And that's the other thing too. Again, we go back to it. Even though it's all for technology, but we have to make sure it makes teachers' life easier. Because if it's not making their life easier, guess what's going to happen? Our life's not going to be easier because they're going to make sure that come up with anything and everything that doesn't make our life easier. So I kind of go back to let's make their life easier. Let's make that from 6 pages to half a page. Again, I have to go through less pages too, because then they don't know what, if they're filling out 6 pages form, they don't know what they're filling out. All the information is all over the place. Let's just condense it and get to it, and then we can go and ask them questions. And when you go and ask them questions, it feels like that they're involved in the process instead of them just filling it out too. So even though you may go through and say, you can't have this, it's a better communication with them because they'll understand it better because you had to ask that question. Instead of just that paper they filled it out and you moved on. So including them, that makes it very helpful also.
And including your tech specialist, I think that's, or tech coach or whatever you call them, I think that's one of the things people don't necessarily think about a tech specialist for. They're like, well, they're the ones teaching in the classroom, which is true. They're the ones helping the teachers, that's true. They're professional development, that's true. But this is very teacher related. So getting them involved on that end as well, that back end piece, is really helpful in the front end. So building that up. Support each other, always, right? Always. Always.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. The only no I really have is like tickets. Tickets, again, they're like the curse word of the tech world. So as much as I'd like to say, they need to track stuff on their end too, especially if they have to do software stuff. So I need to support that. I need to stay in my lane sometimes, which is hard because I come from a smaller school where like the tech department was like him. That was it. Okay. you have a friend back there. You need to. That's him. That's all him. And he's like, so it was like, hey, are you in the building? Nope. Okay. So this teacher, I'm gonna run a virus scan. You good with that? Yep. Okay. And so I was doing that. I was crawling under desk. I'm looking at wires. They don't want me to do that here. So I am not used to that. It took some time to adjust to that. That's not what they want me to do. They have procedures in their office as well. So I have to know when to go. This is not my lane. Stay in my lane. I'm sorry, you got to put that in. And that's supporting them. That's making sure that they know what's going on in their building, that it can be consistent across the board. But I have to learn that.
Yeah, and again, I've worked at the small school district, smaller schools where I was the only one for a whole building, run around and doing everything. But again, but that transition, I kind of tell teachers that put a ticket in. That's not the reason that I want you to put a ticket in. But if they email me right now, or if they call me right now and leave a voicemail, that really doesn't help them, because if they put a ticket in, it will be a lot better because somebody else can look at the ticket and they can help them out. If they're gonna wait for me or leave a voicemail to me, I'm not getting back to them for at least another 20 minutes. So if they really needed something right now, put a ticket in, it would help them a lot better than just calling me.
Which is something I try to convey too. It's not trying to punish you. It's so they can pick it up as quickly as possible, but it's also so they can track. If they have 6 people say the exact same problem, it's a bigger problem now. And it's not just a one-person fix. It's maybe we need to send an email and let everybody know, hey, this is down, this isn't working, something has happened. So communicating that to teachers and explaining that to them instead of just saying, put in a ticket, and then leaving it at that and hoping to get it.
And again, that's always difficult. That's probably one of the biggest. And again, I tell them too, that how are we going to be able to track? If I have if I have 5 tech guys, and if I'm not getting any tickets, if the administration comes and says, you don't need 5, you're not getting any tickets. Yeah, well, I'm not getting tickets. That doesn't mean I don't need anyone. So it goes back to that also. So even if you need more staff, how are you going to be able to prove it if nobody's putting a ticket in? So there are times, obviously, I tell my staff too, even if you don't get a ticket, just put a ticket in for that person. So at least we're tracking and monitoring everything.
And there are times I put in tickets in the system. We use Sherpa. Yeah. And sometimes I will put in a ticket. They've given me the permission, so I can go in and put in a ticket for the teacher. So like Jeff Dole, he's one of our teachers up here. He might be in the middle of teaching. He doesn't have time to stop this second and put in a ticket, but he needs this in. I can go back, put the ticket in for him. So the ticket's in, his guys know to come down. It gets that process started as soon as possible without disrupting his teaching. So I told teachers, call me if you need
something now. That's different. If it's going to stop the class, that's a different thing. But if it can wait, it's better to put a ticket. But again, I'm telling you, most of you guys know that.
We sometimes don't agree, especially during football season. He's an Eagles fan, I'm a Dallas fan, we're struggling. Football season was rough. But we got through it, so we don't always agree. There are times we really don't agree. And that goes back to that communication. Like, I don't like that policy. I don't like the way you got, I'm frustrated for the teachers. I'm frustrated because of, and going back and forth. There are times that I lose, not often. There's times he loses, but going back, it's important though to have those disagreements too, because You don't just want a yes man. I wasn't hired to just say whatever you want me to do. That's not why I'm here. I have my own expertise I'm coming with. So that might mean sitting down and having a discussion, and we might go back and forth. It might be my way, it might be his way. More than likely, it's going to be a compromise in the middle. But you have to disagree. Sometimes we're not going to agree because we come from very different experiences and backgrounds. So that's okay too. You don't always have to be BFFs.
Yeah, and again, collaboration and communication is the key word in this, that even though we're at a different level, but again, communicating with each other and what needs to happen, it's a two-way street, not one-way. And as long as you have that established, it makes your life a lot easier and just making difficult. You know, I like to, sometimes it's okay to over-communicate because then people know that, especially in IT world, because nobody knows what happens in IT offices anyway. That's what they think.
They eat nachos and sleep. That's what they do.
Play games and stuff. But again, there's a lot more things happen. So more you communicate with each other and to staff and everyone, it just makes my life easier.
And honestly, like he said, we're technically at different levels. And in almost every school I've ever been in, there is that case. There is someone who is the tech supervisor. There's someone who is, and it's different. I've been at schools where the tech supervisor is actually more of a me, more of the educational coordinator. And then there are technicians that are kind of filtered in under there doing that stuff. I've seen it both ways. The important thing is you have to realize that's going to happen. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm less important than him. That's just the way the system works. At no point, honestly, have I ever felt like he's my boss, and he's technically not my boss anyway, but
Good, I don't need
technically. But at no point have I ever felt like I'm lesser than. And it's important because if you're that person higher up in that hierarchy and you have someone under you, imagine how hard that would be to come and be like, okay, I know you're like director level, but I'd like to start scheduling meetings with you. Is that okay? I know you're really busy, but I know a local school, she has regular meetings with the curriculum director, which is great. Problem is she never gets to talk to the tech guy. She's a tech coach. So there's a gap there where the curriculum one is talking to the tech director, and then they're trying to filter that back, and things don't get translated well, that route. And then they come down and she has to ask a question, and again, we're going that route. She really needs to be talking to that tech director. So if you are that higher up person, whoever that might be, really start thinking about it being your job. Reach out, because they're going to feel a lot more awkward. It is really hard for them to come to you or go to their boss and be like, I'd like to meet with, one of those district central office people. That's hard. So kind of put yourself in their shoes, and if you want to create this vision, this climate, reach out and say, I think it's important we connect better and kind of make that a priority.
Yeah, I do love to say it. I like to say no a lot, because it's just an example of right here, Pete and C. Teachers are visiting here. They're gonna come back and they're gonna say, I want this, this, this. But they don't know to get this, this, this. What we need to do on the back end to get this, this, this. So I do like to say no a lot, and I kind of tell them that many times they come and say, teacher comes and say, oh, I want this, 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 and then I go and say, why do you really need this, this, this? Okay? And we have that conversation, and then there are 70 to 80% of the time, it goes, oh yeah, really, I don't need that because we already have this, this, this. So, but if you so I say no, but then I have a conversation with them, So again, going back to the communication process, talk with them, let's talk about it. Why do you really need this? And again, this was like Schoology and Canvas, I'm sure many of the schools have it now. That has made it consistent, but when there was a Moodle, and then they wanted all the different Blackboard and everything, teachers were going and setting up and doing the Moodle. Even Schoology have a free account and everything, people are doing. But if school already has decided to go with one of the LMS, let's bring all the teachers in there. So, they might not know. If they don't know, let's inform them that this is where we want to go and everything. So, give them options, even though I say no. After that, have that talk with them, and it just works much better. And next time when you say no, they're going to listen, and let's hope. And that also goes back to, again, I kind of wanted to mention earlier, but the social media has made it really crazier too, because now everyone likes to post stuff for their classroom or anything without realizing what implication that can have. They think they're just doing it for, oh, I'm just doing it for my class. Yes, but there's a lot more things to do with it, so don't just go and post everything or whatever you're doing either too. So that's why I kind of like to say no a lot, but again, communicate with
That's how he
That's what
answers
it
the
goes
phone.
back to.
He doesn't say hello, he says no.
It just works better.
Yeah, it just jumps right to the point. It's great. We need to overlap, but we do set boundaries. So there are things where, like I'll have a contract. Hey, can you look at this contract? I will gladly glance at it, but he does contracts. I'm not the one signing checks. That's him. That's his thing. So we have to kind of set those boundaries, because otherwise you really end up having to do all of it. One of us is going to have to do everything. So saying, you know what, that's not my thing. And I said earlier, the stay in my lane thing, trying to really make sure, you know what, that's his job. Or, you know, we're looking at a professional development plan for the next 5 years. Okay, that we need to pull her in. So making sure you overlap, you need to communicate, but it's okay to also say that's not your job, or that's not my job, and set those boundaries as well, because otherwise you really do end up just doing it all.
Yeah.